watching. Thank you for joining us on this SAG-AFTRA live stream on YouTube. To stay informed about all of our live stream and video events, we invite you to subscribe to this channel. You can go ahead and do that right now. Today, we present a special episode, President's Task Force on Education, Outreach, and Engagement live stream, filming from home for a Netflix pandemic anthology. The presentation will begin momentarily. If you have questions that you'd like to direct to today's guests, please email pteoe@sagaftra.org. That's pteoe@sagaftra.org. As a reminder, today's program is being recorded and you can watch the replay right here on SAG-AFTRA's YouTube channel, along with more great content. Now, please give a warm welcome to today's host, SAG-AFTRA President Gabrielle Carteris.
Thank you, Pam. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Oh, thank you for joining us today. We have a great episode today. I'm very excited. Before I begin, I just want to take a moment to introduce SAG-AFTRA Executive Vice President, Rebecca Damon, who's with us today, as always. Hi, Rebecca. I think she just waved. I can't see it. Anyway, I want you to know, recognizing that this has been an incredibly challenging time during this quarantine and as well the pandemic. It's not been easy for so many of us. But today we actually have a really special couple. They actually are married as well as being performers. I think that you're gonna actually find them inspiring as I did. I just finished watching both actors, Dylan and Becky Ann Baker, really do a wonderful job on a very special project. During their downtime, in a uniquely creative way, they worked on a project that we're going to talk about. If you're a Netflix subscriber, you may have watched or heard of the pandemic anthology series called Social Distance. It is really exceptional, and actually, I think everybody during this time will really identify with it. It premiered on October 15th. It's based on stories of people who communicate remotely and rely on technology to maintain connections during the COVID-19 pandemic. We need connections now more than ever. You may have seen eye-catching billboards around town with, the two cell phones intertwined with a tagline that reads, "Living apart together." The anthology series has been featured in stories from major news outlets as the New York Times, New York Daily News, The Hollywood Reporter, to pop culture news, including Vulture, Decider, Pop Sugar, and The Ringer. So today's interview is going to touch on what it takes not only to film yourself during quarantine, something we're all having to do in different ways as it ebbs and flows, but also how to manage the set, the wardrobe, the makeup and lighting, art direction, and catering while in isolation, because yes, all those jobs still have to be done. So I won't tell you too much more about it, because today we also have with us a wonderful human being, a beautiful actress, and a veteran actor, actually, Linda Powell. She's going to be moderating today's conversation. Hi, Linda. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Linda actually has appeared on Broadway, off-Broadway, and has been seen on screen in such television series as House of Cards, Chicago Fire, Madam Secretary, Law and Order, SUV, and films including The Report, I Think I Love My Wife, and American Gangster. She's based in New York and serves on the national and local SAG-AFTRA board. She's a wonderful leader. Thank you again, Linda, for being here and helping to lift up today's discussion. So without further ado, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Gabby. It's so great to see your face and it's great to be here. I've logged on to a couple of webinars over the past couple of months, and this is just such a wonderful platform for us to share the way that we're managing the changes that are coming to the way we're working, and the changes that are brought on by technology, and today the changes that are happening because of the challenges we're facing with the pandemic. So without further ado, I am going to introduce Becky Ann and Dylan Baker quickly. Becky Ann Baker earned an Emmy and 2 Critics' Choice nominations as Lena Dunham's mother in HBO's Girls. Becky's Broadway credits include Good People, All My Sons, Assassins, Titanic, A Streetcar Named Desire, and The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. Recently, she's appeared in TV's Council of Dads, Hunters, Blacklist, Brockmire, Big Little Lies, and she was Mom Jean Weir in TV's Freaks and Geeks. Her film work includes The Half of It, A Simple Plan, Hope Springs, Death of a President, War of the Worlds, Men in Black, and soon, holler. You know what Becky's not in here is Manhunt, which I've been watching and is crazy good. You are crazy good in it. Next to her, conveniently, is Dylan Baker, who's best known as an actor for his starring role as Bill Maplewood in the critically acclaimed film Happiness, directed by Todd Solondz, and Freddie Shapp in Anchorman 2. He appeared as Colin Sweeney in The Good Wife, for which he received 3 Emmy Award nominations. And he's done arcs on The Americans, Homeland, and Hunters. For the theater, he directed George Kelly's Torchbearers, which won a Lucille Lortel Award for Best Revival. He's done a lot of work at the New Jersey Shakespeare Festival, and his 23 Blast is his feature film directorial debut. So, hi guys.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great, and it's so great to see you. I'm like used to running into you every month or so out and about, but there's no out and about anymore. So there's just out and right back in. Could you start out by telling us just briefly a little bit about the episode that you were in? I think it was number 6 of the series. For people who haven't seen it yet, just so as we're talking, they have a context for the story that got told.
So they were all little 30-minute wonderful short stories of their own, each episode. There's no kind of continuum. And ours were about 2 retired doctors. And one has decided, my character has decided to go back to the hospital and help with the pandemic. And my husband's character has decided to stay home and be sure that he's safe. And so it begins with me arriving back, having been at the hospital for a week. And that's where we start. And so it's a wonderful exploration of a marriage that's complicated by the pandemic. But I think some of these issues would be happening anyway.
And I think it's also that moment when you have made a decision, this is it, retirement. This is where we're going to be. We've got our dream house. We're kind of like, we're there. And then as this whole pandemic is going on, my response is, okay, we're going to do everything to keep it out. And her response is, I can help. I think, my specialty as a doctor is not really, it's kind of like that guy that was the head of the task force. It's not at all built for the pandemic. It was, but hers was very helpful for it. And she, could lend a hand and do a lot for it. So we had immediately the interesting thing about the story is you come in just as she's coming back from it to learn how we are both, and so the whole episode, we are distancing from each other, even though we live in the same house. And
because I'm being quarantined by my husband, and he's put me in the RV when I arrive home for a 2-week quarantine. So I'm to stay in the RV.
I put some extra beans in the RV.
He did.
How did the script come to you? Was it an audition? Was it an offer? Did you know anybody involved in it?
A combination of all of that. It was an offer, but Jesse Peretz was directing it, and he was one of the main directors on Girls that I did for so long. So it was kind of a combination of a lot of things. He knew Dylan and I we've all known each other for quite a while.
Jesse had actually come and seen a play that I did out at BAM that just finished on March 8th. Remember when we used to do plays? But he had come and, attended the show. And on the last performance, literally, Becky and I said, let's get up to the country so we can, have a couple of days.
At our house. And that's when everything shut down.
It's about nine months ago.
So everything shut down. And then they reached out to you to do this thing that would be shot remotely.
Right.
What was your first reaction? Were you both all in, or did somebody have to be talked into it?
Well, I remember being completely all in because I would do absolutely anything that Jesse Peretz ever touched or did. I think we both were pretty much right away.
All like, yes.
But I don't think we understood at the top how much crew work we were really going to do, because there was zero crew, and except on Zoom. We had all our fittings, our makeup, because I had some PPE burning issues in the beginning. All our makeup consultations, everything was done on Zoom. We had one crew member ever, sound. It was a young man named Paul, who was wonderful. He never was in the house unless we were out of it and setting mics. And he had a tent very far away, and he was staying at a little hotel across the river from our house. But it was the only other person that had anything physical to do was a courier who came at 10:30 every night to pick up the iPhones that we had shot on, to whisk them back to New York that they could see the dailies.
Mm-hmm.
So they sent you a huge box that had all the equipment that you would need to set up. How long did the setup take? And what was the hardest part of it?
Well, we immediately started parceling off jobs, and Becky said, "Okay, I'm art director."
I definitely was, what you were going to see, and
and you were costume.
I was. Well, we had a costumer. We just.
You were wardrobe.
I took care of everything if it needed ironing or anything, and I was the caterer. I made us dinner.
Had they seen your house before, or did you have to take them on a tour to choose locations?
That's interesting, because we weren't there when they needed to see it, but our daughter was, and she was entertaining her boyfriend and his family up there that weekend. So our daughter, who's not in this business whatsoever and enjoys not being in it, took them on a cell phone tour of everything about the house and the grounds and everything. It took a couple of hours because they really needed to see. The conceit is that you are watching everything through the eye of either a security camera, a Zoom, or a FaceTime. Mm-hmm. So they needed to see where the security cameras were coming from so that we could hang iPhone 11s from those positions.
Did they have to rewrite anything to fit your house, or
little tweaks and this and that? There is a subplot that I'm a gardener, and the whole thing is about humane animal trap was the name of the episode. And we didn't really have a garden around the house that would work for that. So they had to twist that a little bit. And I think what they ended up doing was using another location and a security camera there to show a groundhog?
There's a raccoon that is getting into his garden. And we actually had a groundhog that was coming and eating my basil. So but we couldn't ever get him on camera.
He wasn't very good at cues.
He was terrible.
He wanted breaks all the time.
Yeah.
Dylan, if Becky was art director, does that mean you were everything else?
Pretty much. I was grip. I also did all the lighting. I did all the grunt work. Let's just put it that way.
And he was terrific at understanding technologically what they were asking us to do with the cameras. But also
what you said about how many boxes. I mean, we had like 30 boxes when we arrived at our house on the porch, just like all these different things. And we had to get all of the iPhones because they were shooting on an iPhone 11. And they gave us 13 of
13
them.
iPhone 11s
and
came to our house.
We had to plug them all in, get them all ready, and also download these different programs, because this is not an iPhone 11, but an iPhone 11 you can trick out so that the 3 camera lenses all of a sudden can do different lenses that a professional camera can do.
And anybody has access to this that has an iPhone 11. There are apps that are readily available that they told us about.
What is that? Murphy. My name was Murphy when I was at Grip. And
let it go, Dylan.
Yeah.
But we learned so much about how to use an iPhone 11 in terms of shooting anything.
Why did they need so many? Why couldn't you just move the same iPhones when you're shooting a different scene? Why did they need?
They would come pick them up at 10. So we would shoot typically on 2 of them a day. And then a courier would come and pick 2 of them up whisk them back to the city so that they could watch dailies in the morning, and then we'd start shooting again after that. So
And
in
the
other words,
sound
we
was
were
being recorded by the iPhone, or was the sound being recorded with this kid in the tent?
The kid in the tent, exactly. Murph will be back.
he's going to fix the
Gonna
light.
fix the light. So cute. All right, so we'll talk about art direction stuff.
Yeah,
while you
yeah.
fix the light.
It was great because we had just had our kitchen renovated at our house. And so I felt like it was my Joanna Gaines moment, you know, for the entire shoot, because I was getting to show off some of the, you know, renovation that we had done in our home. But yeah, here's Murph. Murph's back.
Looks good, Murph.
Thanks.
How much time did you have from the time you got back? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Dylan.
No, it was just interesting because from all that time on sets, when an actor is sitting there kind of going, what is taking so long? And when you're there enough and you start looking at the different crew people, and you know, the really good people are the ones that are just doing anything to make the cinematographer happy. And that is, you know, they're just ready to do whatever they need to do. And it's just a little, what do they need with a blocking thing there, or why do they need another thing? It doesn't matter. If the cinematographer wants it, you throw it up there. If he likes it, it stays. If it doesn't, it comes down. So I kind of got really into that frame of mind. And Mark, who was our cinematographer, was great. And I'd throw things at him like, you want a little of this? You want a little of that? And he'd go, boy, can you do that? It's like, of course I can, sir. Of course I can. And I found myself on we shot Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And I woke up Thursday morning. I've never been more tired in my life.
Did you find it hard to concentrate on the acting when it was time to act, when you were doing all that other stuff?
Yeah, that's a great point, because we would run lines in the morning before we would, just so that we would be confident that they were there, because the rest of the job that we were doing, getting, you know, the set ready and the lights and was so technical that by the time we got to, and then there would be these tripods that would have an iPhone facing this way, an iPhone facing that way. One of them we would be zooming with them, you know, it could be the director Jesse would come on, or the cinematographer, to tell us what they needed, and then the other one was actually shooting us. So you know, it was fascinating, but it was exhausting, because you would concentrate on everything and then sit down and try to, you know, remember the scene and what you were going to do. But luckily, because it was just us at the house, so we had no other distractions, because we're in the middle of a global pandemic, it was easy to kind of concentrate on the work as well.
Yeah, it was kind of, once action happened, we were all happy, you know, because it was like, oh, good.
Shoot,
now we
know what we're doing.
That's the easy part. It must have been a little bit like coming out of a tunnel when it was over.
It absolutely was
devastating, because we shot it in July, so we'd already gone through March, April, May, June of the pandemic, being kind of, you know, sheltered, and so all of a sudden we had this whirlwind 2-3 weeks, and then it was all over, and they came and picked up the RV, and they came and picked up everything, and it was like, wait, where did everybody go?
There was a woman, Jess Ramos, who was incredibly helpful with technical things, that I asking her all these questions. And when the shoot was done, I found myself texting her going, where can I get one of those things? And she'd be like, Dylan, I'm working.
You know, you just mentioned the RV, which I read about in one of the articles I read, but I'm not sure we've talked about today. When you were away from home when you got the offer, and when you came back, there was an RV in
our driveway. There was an RV, and as Dylan said, about 40 boxes on our front porch. Some of them were props or costumes or lights or iPhones. We pulled up to our house after having been gone for about 10 days, and there was all this stuff, you know, that had arrived.
The RV was your second location, right?
Yeah, but it also was, they shot it so that you saw it, and so we had to place it right on the driveway and things like that. But I also had to plug it in, because I knew if Becky was in there, this was July, that I had to get air conditioning going so that she wouldn't expire.
And we've never had an RV before. We had no idea what to do.
I kept trying to plug it in and it kept blowing the circuit.
What's the trick?
Well, luckily I walked down, I saw that there was a fella down the way who had an RV, a neighbor that I didn't know very well, Jack, and I kind of wandered over with my mask on going, how do you plug in an RV? And he came down and he kind of like jerry-rigged it, you know, to this thing and put it into an outlet that didn't have a circuit breaker on it. And I said, is this okay? And he said, Dylan, I'm an electrician. I know this is okay. I was like, how could I get this lucky? I have a guy that knows RVs and is an electrician that came down and helped. So
when you got the offer, you didn't realize 40 boxes were in your future, did you?
No, we had no idea what, I mean, you know, after it all, after we accomplished everything and looked around.
How long did that take from the time you got home to the time you started shooting? How many days?
I think we had about a week to work with different, to do costume fittings on Zoom and makeup, you know, stuff. And then a lot of electronic, you know, taking us through what to expect and how to work with the iPhone lenses and things like that are in there. But yeah, I think that was about a good week. And then we did some readings of the script, and there were other actors, of course, in it, Marsha DeBonis and Ray
Anthony
and
Towns,
Sunita, and you know, it was a great cast. So we did a Zoom reading of the script, talked through the script. They made some changes. So there were some, you know, some parts that seemed almost normal.
Yeah. Normal.
Some,
normal is.
Yeah.
Some things, yeah.
The costumes, were you guys wearing your own clothes, or did they send stuff and wait for pictures, or?
Yeah, it was a mixture. My original, I originally show up in scrubs, and so they sent several pair, and then they didn't want them back, so I was able to donate them to a local clinic, which was nice. And they, you know, there were a lot of things like that they were like, please find a home for it, you know. So
did you, the redness on your face, had you done any makeup like that before? Or did they have a makeup person consulting with you?
I did have a consultation, and they had sent makeup, special makeup, and some of it makes it almost look like your skin is peeling off, and there were some wonderful effects. But I think it's because we're both theater actors that it was easier to grasp what they needed and kind of take us through the stages.
There's like there's some kind of thing that you put on that is for sticking, for adhesive, that if you put it on there and then it dries, it will give you kind of wrinkles and stuff.
So like a spirit gum kind of thing?
Like a spirit gum, but it's a little bit different. I can't remember what it's called. A little bit kinder
to your face.
But I can remember as a kid, you know, getting ready to play a character that was 50, you know, ancient. When I was like 19, that somebody did that, and I was like, wow, that's great, you know.
Yeah, I remember spirit gum used to really, like, it would tear your face off.
Yeah.
Yes, and this stuff will too. And,
yeah, but this was
once you're into week 2, you're like, there we go. You know. But Becky found that. She put some of this stuff on.
Well, no, they sent everything.
Yeah.
It was
they did send everything.
They sent, the makeup person was really terrific, and she took me through little by little, because it then in different scenes it was at different stages.
And there were, you know, lines like, look at your hands, you know, and so she was supposed to have her hands be all from washing all the time.
Yeah, it looked really good.
Yeah. That's, we owe it all to the Zoom crew. I mean, we really did have a terrific crew.
Most of my costume came from my closet, except for these.
Dylan
brought props.
They sent him Crocs, and he has not been out of them ever since. They let him keep his Crocs, and he has not taken them off yet.
Just so excited about my Crocs.
Whole new world. Dylan, did you find that because you directed film before that you didn't feel intimidated by the stuff that was being asked of you?
I think I was even more excited about it, because I was beforehand, about in April, we had been asked by this group to do a 24-hour play thing, which was they would write something for us and we would film it on an iPhone. And Becky had an iPhone 11. It was not tricked out. It was just a normal iPhone 11. And we started, working on what we could do with a scene, because the first thing that happens when you're filming is you have a scene and either you just set the thing up and it stays there and it becomes stagnant, or it moves a bit, or you figure out a way to move it. So when we were working, we started trying to figure out let's see, if the shot starts here, and then as the scene's going on, it kind of moves, and you take it and move over to here. Then I could move over, and all of a sudden we got a little movement in it. And of course, we got excited about that. Certainly it was true for social distance. Jesse Peretz, that's what he was. He was trying to give himself as many choices as he could in terms of some kind of movement. At sometimes it was a stagnant camera from two locations that they could see each other. There was one where Becky was in the distance by the river, on the deck on the river, and I was on the front porch. And we were shooting so we could see each other, but it also allowed us to get up and move a little bit and be caught in the other camera. And there was a time that Becky was walking, but of course, walking, you're going to get a little bit of bounce and whatnot. It's very hard to keep that nice and smooth and everything. I mean, it's why cameramen work, years to try and get it smooth. So when you're doing it at home, things like just having a tripod, a small tripod, was incredibly helpful. And as Becky said, it was a tripod that was tricked out with a second attachment. So it would have one phone that we would be looking at and seeing the zoom, and one phone that would have the camera on us. So at the same time we're being filmed, we can actually see the shot here, because they also have a program that will take the image from the camera that's being live cast and over our Wi-Fi send it out to everybody. When we were filming, we would have on the Zoom 20.
Oh, no, there was, most days there were about 32 people. You could see the number on the Zoom, 32 people.
On one side of the camera, one side of the phone, one phone is the camera.
Right.
The other phone is a shot you can see yourself. And when you need to talk to them and you want to see them, do they come on the camera?
That's right.
They'd come on the Zoom.
They'd come on the Zoom that was facing us. So we could see that there were 32 people watching. It might be makeup and hair and everything. But the only person that would come on would be the person that needed to talk to us. Maybe the cinematographer or the costumer, or somebody saying, go like this, or, whatever it was. I can honestly say that I walked away from this entire experience with more appreciation for every single crew member that we've ever worked with. I feel like the next time I do show up on a set, I'm going to just weep and hug them, because I never realized how hard so much of their job is,
And I'm going to be saying, you could get a little more out of that shot if you just bring
Well, we were talking before about all these things that people are finding ways to create stories during this crisis, and how much of what's being figured out is going to stick and how much is going to go by the wayside once, God willing, we get through this. And I think many of us are feeling like, I understand how much work is now done on my behalf, and I'm quite willing to let you guys take it over again.
Yeah,
that too.
Absolutely.
That too.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's really true. And just it was such a beautiful crew on this particular show. They worked with such patience, especially how difficult the technology was. They worked with such patience with us while we tried to get things right for them,
But I also loved how Jesse Peretz made sure there was a little moment, because Becky was, we had just redone our kitchen. literally last
And I
December
told
and
him that,
January,
yeah.
and she mentioned it to him. So he all of a sudden had a line and like, but we're here. I mean, look at this place. And he had me pick up the camera and kind of show
I
the kitchen.
remember that moment.
You know, that we might, you know, I could show it to my mother and my friends, you know.
In fact, the guy who did the renovation on the kitchen, a contractor who we love, both of us would like to marry him. Tom, he with this group, Majestic Tile out of Honesdale, Pennsylvania, he said, somebody told me my kitchen was on television, you know, and it's like, yes, Tom, your kitchen was on television.
What about private conversations? Like, could you have a private conversation with the director if you needed to or wanted to, or if he needed to talk to you privately? Did that come up, or was it so kind of a guerrilla situation that there wasn't a lot of what's my motivation happening?
Yeah, I don't think we ever asked for a private conversation. It was all pretty, everybody was really on the same page from the beginning. Hillary Wiseman Graham was the showrunner. She was amazing. And it started with such a, you know how a great job starts great and it's just that way all the way through. And I don't ever remember having a private conversation. I mean, it did come up, I think the most private we got was the conversation about whether we think I'm really leaving him at the end or just going back to work, which I don't want to give anything away, but.
The thing for me watching all of the pieces of this anthology was that they were all filmed with people who were quarantining together. So sometimes you'd have parents and children, roommates, and in your case, husband and wife. And I think for me, and also because I know you guys, the relationship is strong to start with the people that are in these scenes, because they are people who have relationships already. You guys have worked with each other a few times before. You've played husband and wife before too, haven't you?
Yeah, a bunch actually. We're getting ready to do it again on New Amsterdam.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. So
is it every time different? Do you bring in different pieces of your relationship? Do you not think about it too much? Whatever settles in.
I mean, I think it's always story, right? I mean, what the story dictates pretty much what, like, as you say, pieces of our relationship are useful. This one was amazing because it's really, I think this could have been an interesting conversation, this story, whether we were in a pandemic or not, how two people handle retirement and how they look at retirement and how hard it is for one person and how easy it is for another.
I think it's also, I remember that book, what was it called? Audition, when I was growing up. And just that the strongest choice is that, you know, deep love. And so like a story like this, the strongest choice, I think, with two people that are fighting to overcome is that they love each other deeply. So that, you know, that's kind of great to go into. We've also, I mean, Becky and I were able to do last year this show called Hunters. And literally every episode that we had together, we were just fighting like dog, and that was fun too.
Calling each other terrible things, like horrible things that I can't even mention. So. But yeah, that was.
What do you do when you've just had a situation where you're trying to set up 10 cameras and you're cranky over the coffee in the morning, and then you have to sit down?
We did have that too. There was that Thursday when I woke up and I was unapproachable. I was gone. Luckily, we didn't start shooting that day because it was basically a night shoot until like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So I had some time to let the coffee work and take a nap and go out on the lawn and yell a little bit.
No, it's true. I mean, you also handled all the truly physical things, like climbing up on ladders and hanging lights. And, you know, he was Murph. He was the crew member that the Zoom crew called him by his name that he came up with for his technician.
Yeah, we had, I think Murph was the
Murph.
grip, and then there was another guy who did something else, and he was impossible.
They
That's
were all
I can tell
Dylan, but it was just different,
The other guy was usually
faces
on
of
a
Eve.
break.
Yeah.
And your sound guy, did you form any relationship with him, or was it just too far apart the whole time?
Well, it was kind of great because we did have these very specific rules. We couldn't be anywhere near him. He would hand off a mic. That's about as close as we got. But on that fourth day of shooting, that when Dylan says he woke up so exhausted, I took Paul kayaking. We went up a couple miles upriver and came down the Delaware River in the middle of the day, just because we had some time. So,
but I also think, like the end of the first day, we had to hand off the two iPhones that were going to go with the thing, and he was going to add the little sound chips that he'd been working on and put all that together. And I also had a little bag there with a couple of beers in it. And he was staying and there's no place up here to get beer at this time of night. And he was like, oh. So he was our friend once that happened. That was good.
Yeah.
You guys say you're getting ready to do a New Amsterdam. Will this be your first time working with the protocols, or have you worked already?
No, this will be my first time.
Mm-hmm.
Dylan's going to work on another show in a week or so.
I'm doing an episode of Evil, and I've already started had to go and take a test a day before going for my costume fitting, and how it was approached. The costumer and his assistant had the shields and the fat mask, and I had the mask, and we did everything. And I had to report to the set first and answer questions and take my temperature and do the whole thing. And people felt pretty good about it. There's Mike Slovis, who's the showrunner on New Amsterdam, says, "Hey, even I feel comfortable." So something's working.
Yeah.
So.
Have you worked yet, Linda?
Yeah, I worked on Modern Love, and it was a little strange the first couple of days, but once you get used to the rhythms of the masks and the shields and the testing, and everybody around you being so PPE'd, it then felt like being on a set. I actually think I felt safer on set than walking down the street, because I know how much testing has gone on, and there's PPE all around me,
Right.
I think folks are still figuring it out and working out bugs, but we're blessed that we have the ability to work.
Right.
Is there something about the rehearsal, like before you shoot, like there's none of that, like blocking, or is there?
I think different sets have different ways, but there was rehearsal when I was working. Yeah. A couple more things before we scoot over, because I want to hit some of the member questions. Tell us what you have coming up and what you're excited about, and anything you want to let us in on.
Well, for me, it's I'm going to do New Amsterdam with my husband, playing parents together. And then I'm going to, after the first of the year, go back and shoot what I was doing when everything, in March, when everything shut down, which was a couple episodes of Billions. Oh. So those are my two things ahead. Yeah.
Cool.
And I'm doing, I think, 2 episodes of Evil. And then a couple of, or however many episodes of New Amsterdam that's coming up. And Hunters did get picked up for a 2nd season, so we're very excited about that, but we have no idea when that might be. And
nobody has any idea when anything would be anymore.
Because even if you think when it's going to happen, then the next thing you know is it's all shut down.
Because it was
again.
interesting on Evil. They talked to me about it in September, and it was like a couple of weeks, and I had said yes, but my manager and my agents were saying, no, there's something else going on. We don't want to say anything. So I went back and I said, look, the Kings, I've worked for them a lot. I want to tell them that I want to do this. And they said, Dylan, they don't have dates. They're not committing to dates. Yeah. So it took all the way. It got pushed back a week or two, but now they're going and they've committed to dates. So we're able to say, yes, this is going to work. So, I'm thrilled because I think I'm friends with Bobby Cannavale. We just did this Medea together at BAM. And he's so funny because he gets together on these Zooms with a bunch of buddies and he goes, dude, I got to work. I got to act. I got to act. And we all laugh at him and say, yeah, Bobby's got to act, but we're all, I got to act. I got to do something. I mean, Becky goes to the grocery store and gets the girls to laugh.
Yeah, as long as I could get my laugh at the grocery store every morning up in upstate New York, I was good. I'm like, okay, I got a good laugh. You know, it's hard. You need an audience of some kind.
Yeah. And I know we're all watching the news with this possibility of a second wave. So I'm just hoping that we can keep going out and working. But you know, now that you guys have the remote thing figured out, you guys are set.
I know. I mean, if we have to shoot another remote, that's fine with us. It was so much fun, you know.
It was fun.
You would do it again.
Oh, definitely.
I was glad it was just a half an hour.
Yeah. We were glad it was a short show, but it was fun.
One of the member questions, which I actually had when you guys were talking too, was about these iPhone 11s. This one just came in. Do you know the specific app that they put on it? And it's available. Anybody can buy it and download it onto their phone, as far as you know. And
I think that some were even for free. Dylan asked one of our. There we go.
It's called Filmic Pro. Filmic, Filmic Pro. And when you go on the site on your phone, it gives you lots of different choices and for exactly what you want. So you've got to kind of go in there and study. I mean, there's some very expensive things and then there's less expensive things. And like Becky has an iPhone 11 and we would be able to just put that on her phone. What it does is it all of a sudden, depending on the level that you get, it gives you different choices of lenses, like a fisheye lens or a far away or a zoom. You can do a zoom
or
with
wide
your
angle.
phone.
All of a sudden, you could get a wide angle lens. I mean, it's wonderful different lenses.
So it's all those different things. Then it also does the other things that I can't explain too well about, like ratio and the quality of the light and the quality of the color. It gives you all of those choices once you learn how to do it. And they talk me through and say, okay, now you see that roundy round thing, tap
Push
on that.
Yeah.
Okay, now draw that down, and it would be different rate of apertures and different speeds of film and all kinds of different things that it would turn your camera into a real working camera. I mean,
the proof is in the pudding is that you look at the episodes of Social Distance, they were all shot by those actors that were in their homes or wherever they were.
Yeah.
It's crazy. There was no proof.
Come preloaded, or did you have to go to the App Store for it?
No,
they walked us through that.
They came preloaded, but there was also the other thing that they had was something called Team Viewer Quick Support. And Team Viewer Quick Support basically was the thing that gave us the ability to, through the internet, show what the image that we're going, send that to other people. So that the director would be able to see exactly what we were doing. Because our internet was pretty damn good, but not great, it would go away from time to time. So, he when we would finish a take, Jess Ramos would come on and say, Dylan, would you do me a favor and just go and see whether you got that and whether it's running and whether. So I'd take a look at it. And after a while, they came to trust that, yes, we actually got what we were shooting. Then at the end of the day, as we said, the courier would come. He'd bring all the stuff down to New York. It's about a 2-hour drive. And in the morning when we talked to Jess, he had already seen all the dailies. He'd seen everything we shot the night before. He knew what he wanted. He knew what he didn't want. He knew what worked. It was pretty amazing the way it worked.
Did you like watching your takes back, or was it a necessary evil?
Neither one of us have ever enjoyed that.
Yeah. Dylan would do it for me because, I always say if I ever watched myself on film, I never step in front of a camera again.
Kind of the same way. I want to get to some of these questions from members. Let's give me a second. You've been quoted as saying that you never worked as hard in your life as you did for this Netflix episode. What would you say was the most challenging part of the work and why? And what was the most rewarding?
For me, the most challenging part was the technology, and luckily my husband handled that, because I was literally up for grabs. Little by little, I came to know, what they needed from me. Even doing the claps and all those things. But I would have been up for grabs had I not had Dylan with me on the technology. But I think what was fascinating, the best part, was to realize that because we've all put in so much work as actors all our lives, and we're at a certain age, that we could do all this technology and do all these things. And then when it was time to work, we could go to work, because that's what we do. That's where I felt comfortable.
I can't remember what I saw it on. I was watching something and I saw this guy say, the things that I'm known for is I can put together something from IKEA without looking at the directions, and how he was so proud about that. And for me, I think it was receiving a sort of there was these huge suitcases that would have a couple of iPhones. They'd have all the different things to it, and working with these people that would tell us over Zoom, okay, how do I put this together? How do I put this together? And kind of setting it up was really interesting. But what was the most rewarding thing about the whole shoot for me was, like, on day 3, I knew what we were starting. I asked them the night before and said, what will we be picking up? This. And I took a couple of new iPhones and got them all ready and put them on the things and put it in, and got a shot together, so that when they came on, we put it on. I said, how's this? Ding, and I was pretty thrilled about that when Jess said, Dylan, no actor has done this.
No actor has ever set up a shot before we came on before.
He wrote that in his diary that night.
I know.
He did.
And then the next day I woke up, I can't move, because it was exhausting. It was really exhausting, but thrilling at the same time. But you mentioned that I've directed one film, and I felt the same way. When the film was over, there was that just like huge amount of, oh, thank goodness we're done with that. And also, like, what am I going to do now? Yeah. I miss that thing of every day having to do something and get something on, and this is not working, and put this over here. So
I got a question about the roles that you played. Did they feel similar or different from other roles you've played? What felt natural and easy, and were there parts of the characters that you felt you had to reach for?
I felt mine was pretty close to me in terms of a woman who wants to go get things done and go back into the line of fire. I grew up like you did in a military family. And so for me to absolutely see it as my duty to serve felt completely normal. And I loved that aspect of this woman. She was just ready to go back and get it done, So that was good. And I loved the discussion of the marriage. I loved that part of this story. I thought, seeing how two people who've been together and love each other so much, but can find themselves at a crossroads, was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think it's, there must be couples across America that are dealing with that thought of, I can do something right now. And the other one, like my character, who's saying, I did things for 40 years. I did everything. I'm not really the one that's gonna be able to do anything. And my life is diminished if I lose you, because you're you're going out on a limb to help other people. It's tough, because you want to be that character that's like, we can do it. But that there's also people that are saying, we've worked hard and we deserve to live. We deserve to make it through this.
Right.
And, so.
Different places in life.
Yeah.
Gabby, do you have a question?
I did. First of all, this is great. This is so interesting. I did not want to interrupt, but I do have questions. And I think part of it for me, not just working as actors in this, which is really wonderful. I think that particularly for not just young people, we always used to, say young people they have to be Renaissance in terms of how they work, in everything. Clearly, all of us need to be right now and can be. So I love that message. But for Dylan and Becky separately, but for Dylan, do you feel it made you a better director by going through this process? What did you learn in terms of how you want to approach directing? And Becky, you talk a lot about being as you're acting in your work. Has this inspired you to want to direct?
Yeah, it's interesting. We immediately have, a couple of people, for my sister and her husband, close friends, Paul and Philip, and they're in our bubble.
Upstate.
So we can have them over to our house. We can go over to their house. We feel comfortable that way because we know where each other have been. And we immediately started coming up with ideas of like, we've got to do this. We can get the thing ready and we could do this. And, we haven't quite gone beyond the here's how we're going to do it stage. But I have to say that it's really there for the taking. I mean, and in terms of as a director, it makes me see different product that's coming out now and watching it. And you see immediately that you might have 30 pages of brilliant writing, but if that camera's just sitting there and it's not moving, we have just gone past being able to sit there and watch something for 30 minutes without it moving, without the picture changing. And there are ways you can do it. If you can just get two angles so that it starts, moving a bit. I have a friend who was working with a graduating class who is doing, supposed to do their showcase in the spring. And instead of doing a showcase, they did filmed scenes. And it was very hard because they'd have to do this side in one location and this side in another location. So that in their apartment, they would have to find walls that kind of look like the other person's apartment's wall, or bathroom that look like or a door, to come to the door. And they'd have to learn how to do viewpoints so that the looks matched and all that sort of thing. And really, that was good stuff for them to be learning. Because once they start working with a camera, it won't be foreign to them. That they'll have just a beginner's look at what that is, and when they see it, they can see what works and what didn't work. So yeah, I think
almost not to waste a shot.
Right.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
For me, directing doesn't interest me as much as writing does, is the short answer to that question. I've always thought more about story than, the bigger picture. Sorry.
Dylan's answer just now dovetails into a really specific member question that we got, which is about eyeline and how you were placing the cameras when you were shooting. Was that a big conversation? Did it change given the scene you were shooting? Like figuring out the eyeline, but for where the camera.
It's actually an interesting point, because all the Zoom conversations and the FaceTime conversations that you have on any of these, even if you're looking at the Zoomers down here, you're actually playing as if you're looking at them up here to the camera, to the lens,
like this.
So
yeah, exactly,
that's right. So
exactly.
so even when you're acting, even if Dylan's down here and I'm in a scene with him, I'm actually playing it to the lens on the camera. So you don't actually get to look at their faces that way. But
yeah, you have to, and we constantly find ourselves looking at it. Oh, doggone it, I'm not looking at the daggum lens.
It's interesting because for it to read as if you're talking to them, you have to be looking in the lens. It's pretty interesting. So that it does take you away from looking at them.
But the short answer to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
See,
know.
so I'm like, yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's really interesting.
See, we're Linda's learning things.
I'm learning. You can't teach an old dog new tricks.
But just I mean, we basically relied on Mark Schwartzberg. What's his last name? Schwartzberg.
Schwartz something. Schwartzbard.
We relied on him to tell us about eyeline and where we should look and that sort of thing. And if we had like at times, like right at the beginning when Becky comes up to the house and all of a sudden is looking and there's a note, you know, like where would that be? And then she has to grab the note. And, you know, at the same time, I'm running a camera up here and there's another camera that I've started down there that's getting her coming down off the porch a little later. And also handing her the piece of paper that she's got to crunch up and throw it. It was fascinating.
Why do I wish we had a making of video?
Yeah.
There were never any, except for the walk and talk FaceTime, there was never a camera move, an actual move of a camera, was there?
There was just a little bit like what we said in the kitchen when I had to, it was as if I was on a Zoom and picked it up and did that. But what we actually did was pick up the tripod behind it and pick that up and move it.
And you had to walk to the
bathroom
too. You had a walking shot to the bathroom.
I did.
Yeah, well, you got up out of bed and walked down the hall.
Oh, that's right.
There were a few little tracks.
Was that a FaceTime walk and talk?
Yeah, that was
always on the tripod.
Again, on a small tripod with both the Zoom and the camera. And I had
by small tripod, how small do you mean?
like literally about
like 2 feet,
about
maybe, or maybe 2.5 or 1.5 feet. But large enough that it has 2 holders for the phone.
And it would
put it like this.
You could.
Yeah, exactly. And it was kind of sitting beside the bed, and then
pretending to be his iPhone.
As I was waking up, you know, I find my way to pick it up and then move down the hall with it. And then of course there's the whole thing of setting the lights as it goes along so that the cinematographer is happy with the journey that you're taking. And that was mostly just, you know, working with the lights in our house and maybe adding a little thing of this. Do you like this? Do you like that? Kind of thing.
We've got another tech question coming in because this is really the most fascinating. Well, you guys are fascinating too. Could you elaborate? Could you elaborate on the audio? How did the miking work? Was it all wireless? Was it on an iPhone? Was it on another iPhone or on a recorder in the tent? Did you need to do any re-recording afterwards?
So I think that's the most fascinating question, because I think what they found in the first, 2 episodes, they had sent the sound equipment to the actors, and
we did a publicity thing with some of the actors, and a guy in a previous episode
they described getting the sound equipment and how heavy it was.
Guys, when I got that sound card, could you believe it? It was so heavy, and we're all like,
we had Paul, you know. So I think what they realized is there are a lot of jobs that you can have other people do, but sound is never one of them. You really need a sound. Sound is the hardest job there is. So we were lavaliered. You know, he would hand us off the mics and we would do it ourselves.
He'd put them on a table and then we'd come up and get them after.
And we would place our lavaliers ourselves, but and then there were some situations where he had gone into the set and placed mics in certain positions, and then he'd left and we'd come in.
And
there was real sound
a couple of times with a long boom when we were outside.
So the sound was as close to being on a set as we had.
May I ask a question about that? So to say you never hooked up to the iPhone itself. That was done.
It was never on the iPhone. No, it was totally, he recorded it so that, you know, like Marcia and Ray and Becky and myself, we'd all be like, you know, I'm thinking that was just great.
Yeah.
Oh, the other neat thing was Sunita, when she was a doctor, And we came on and started, doing Becky's scene with her. She has this phone call with her, and a doctor walks by, and it was like, wow, they shot in a hospital. It was her apartment.
And they
they had tricked it out, sent her some stuff that they could put up on the wall.
And her boyfriend
walked by.
Was the extra.
and she had, of course, the gear and everything, and just talking into the phone. And we thought she was in a hospital.
Yeah.
It looked so good.
It looked great. I completely bought that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I was shooting a couple weeks ago, they had a lot of green screens around. I think they're placing locations behind us sometimes when it's something that's maybe too crowded to shoot. And I've even have friends who are doing play readings, and the theaters are sending them green screens to put behind them so they can make sets to go with their screen stuff. So brave new world.
Can I ask a question, Linda? Because the protocols, and since you were talking about it, and I'm hearing about what it's like in that house when you're together alone doing it, but you've been on the set and we just did the protocols. And if you could just talk about, I know this is not to take from you, Dylan and Becky, but I want to talk about what it's like in terms of protocol, what it's to be at home in that kind of sterile, protected environment. Now we're going into the universe of going on sets. And when you were on the set shooting, where the shots, you're talking about the green screens to create, different locations, but what is the distancing? Is there a distance shift when you're working finally on the set? You're not with the PPE. There's been a lot of talk about how things are going to be shot differently. Did you find that once you were in your scene, it was just like working a scene?
For me, it was just like working a scene. I've had some friends who've gone to work, and I think producers are making different choices to what they're comfortable with. We pretty much were shooting normal distance from each other. I didn't think that producers would be doing scenes with a lot of people in them, but I did a scene with like 40 kids in a gym.
Wow.
But everybody had a mask and a shield. And they had these huge air purifiers all around the gym. So it would be, you'd hear this loud voice say, masks off, shields off, and we'd put them down. You'd shoot for a couple minutes, masks on, shields on, they put them off. And for the scenes where we had that large amount of people, sometimes you just have to show up on set with your mask and you take it off to work. But for those scenes, they insisted, and all the extras, mask and shield the entire time, right next to you, ready to put back on. So no, there wasn't, once we were shooting, it felt to me just like shooting. I've talked to people whose experiences have been different. I mean, the rules of the protocols don't change, but how producers, work with them, I think, is a personal or corporate decision. I'm not sure which.
Some of it's a visual, that's whatever they're able to get away with. I think there was so much concern wrapped up around it. That's why I want to ask, because we've really tried to create, an environment that's going to be the safest as possible. But there was so much talk about what it was going to deprive people of the opportunity of doing, as directors, what would they have to change, and writers. So it's interesting. Big groups still are existing. Mm-hmm. We still are having background work. Yeah. I wanted people to be able to hear what kind of the logistics are looking like. And particularly because Dylan's going back now.
I'm interested to see what the COVID doctor or the person on set who's specifically, what kind of position they're in, because you wonder about those sets where all of a sudden you feel uncomfortable about something, and if you raise your voice, are you all of a sudden in danger of losing work because it's somebody that's making things stop?
I found the two places I've worked, they're as concerned with keeping the protocols as we are. I would suggest anybody going to work, if they don't introduce you to the COVID protocol officer, see if you can just find out who it is and introduce yourself so that you know who they are, in case, so that you don't have to ask somebody who they are when you may not want to.
Right.
For the job I'm going to do, they've had, like, I had to go take a test. And I said, well, I can get it over here. And they were like, no, we want you to do it at the places we know that we have a relationship with. we will see the results. And so it's kind of like, well,
Yeah. And they
that's good.
also
I
have
want them to know the results for everybody.
yeah,
so.
and they can guarantee that they get them back in a timely manner so that they can clear you to work.
Right.
Yeah. I've been instructed that 2:05 is my out time, so it's 2:04. And I am a military brat. So,
Me too.
I just want to thank you guys. It's just been such a treat talking to you.
It's
You guys,
good to see
seeing
you.
faces.
this has actually been an incredible, really interesting panel, and the discussion was great. So thank you for both Dylan and Becky, and of course, Linda. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I think this is so, clearly it's timely, but it's also, for me, when I'm listening to you, it's very hopeful. I think we've been living in this time of incredible anxiety. Again, we want to get back to work. We want the ability to work, and we can get back to work. We are getting back to work, and it makes me giddy. It makes me really happy. So on behalf of everybody here at SAG-AFTRA, we want to say thank you for doing this with us. Special thanks, of course, to each of you who've been, for all of you who've been tuning in each week for our President's Task Force on Education Outreach and Engagement live streams. It's been a joy to really be able to share that with you. If you haven't already, please, please, please subscribe to SAG-AFTRA's YouTube channel to get updates on the great content that is coming forth from so many of our members like this. We have so many great events coming up, so stay connected, take care of yourself, stay healthy. Work is coming, so let's get ready. And with that, thank you, everybody, and have a great day.